The WNBA in recent times has seen fluctuating ratings that swing with every major event. Caitlin Clark, a rising star in women's college basketball, has been a key player who brought attention not just to herself but to the sport as a whole. Fans were tuning in, buzzing with excitement over her impressive plays and electrifying performances. Then came the disappointment, her elimination. The reaction was swift and fiery, not only among fans but also within the media landscape. The metaphorical burn and crash that followed her exit felt almost inevitable, leaving a trail of tantrums and outbursts that colored the aftermath. While the sport has seen its fair share of ups and downs, this particular situation struck a different chord, one that speaks to the current landscape of women's sports and how quickly emotions can take over when a key player is taken out of the game. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Caitlin Clark's departure from the tournament was more than just a sporting loss. It was like pulling the main attraction from a marquee event, leaving fans wondering what could have been. Her popularity brought a whole new energy to the WNBA and beyond, making her exit sting even more for those who had placed their hopes in her dominating the season. With her impressive stats and the ability to command attention on and off the court, Clark became a beacon of hope for those who wished to see women's basketball gain the respect and admiration it deserved. Yet when she was eliminated, it felt as if the momentum she had built came crashing down, dragging the WNBA ratings down with it. This wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the emotional connection fans had built with Clark and the way her performance made people feel invested in the games. Her play style, sharp and direct, drew comparisons to some of the best male players in basketball history. She didn't just score points, she seemed to light up the court, making it hard to look away. The way she moved, the way she led her team, there was a sort of brilliance that made it hard not to root for her. And when that brilliance was taken away, it left a void that many were not ready for. The WNBA, already in a sensitive position with its ratings, felt the brunt of her absence almost immediately. The aftermath of her elimination wasn't quiet either. Fans took to social media, voicing their frustration and disappointment. Some threw virtual tantrums, as if Clark's exit was a personal slight. It was almost comical how quickly the narrative shifted from admiring her skills to lashing out at anyone who didn't seem equally devastated. The sports world, particularly in women's basketball, often rides the waves of high emotions, and Clark's elimination was the perfect storm for those emotions to overflow. The bullies of the basketball world, those quick to critique and even quicker to throw tantrums, found a new target in the WNBA's struggles, taking to platforms to tear down what had been built up so carefully. The tantrums themselves became a spectacle. People who had never shown interest in women's basketball suddenly had opinions, loudly sharing them across social media and sports talk shows. The discussion veered from Clark's elimination to an exaggerated post-mortem of the WNBA's future, with some going as far as to suggest that her exit signified a broader issue within the sport. It was a bizarre mix of passion and vitriol, as if the loss of one player could topple an entire league. In some ways, it was a compliment to Clark, though an unintended one. Her influence had grown so large that her absence could cause this kind of chaos, proving how much weight she carried in the sport. Yet, while the tantrums and fits from fans and critics alike were loud, they masked a deeper issue: the perception of women's sports and how one player's success, or failure, can dramatically shape public interest. The WNBA has been fighting for recognition and respect for years, and while it has made strides, events like Clark's elimination show just how fragile that progress can feel. When a star is taken out of the equation, it shouldn't spell disaster for the league, but the fact that it did reveals the WNBA's ongoing battle for sustainability and relevance in a sports world that still, unfairly, places it on a lower pedestal than men's sports. Caitlin Clark's elimination brought a level of drama that seemed almost unnecessary, but it also highlighted the intensity of modern sports fandom. People were invested in her story, not just her stats. She wasn't just a player, she had become a symbol of something bigger, potentially the key to breaking the glass ceiling in women's basketball. Her elimination, then, felt like a step back for those who saw her as the leader of a movement, and the crash that followed reflected not just disappointment in her loss, but frustration with the system that allowed one player's exit to impact the sport so heavily. At the same time, the attention Clark drew to the WNBA wasn't all bad. It's a reminder of how one person's influence can change the trajectory of a sport. She brought eyeballs to women's basketball in a way few others have. There was a surge of interest, especially among younger fans, eager to see her carve out her place in basketball history. But with that surge came expectations. And when those expectations weren't met, when she didn't take the tournament by storm, the fall felt even harder. The tantrums, the fits, the rants, they were all part of the growing pains of a sport that is still figuring out how to sustain its audience when a major star is no longer in the spotlight. What makes this scenario even more fascinating is the irony of it all. For years, women's sports have been dismissed, their athletes overlooked, and yet here was a moment where people were so invested in a single player that her elimination caused a near existential crisis for the league. It was both a step forward and a reminder of how much work is still left to do. The tantrums from fans weren't just about Clark. They were about the frustration of wanting more from women's sports and feeling like that progress was slipping away. It was as if people saw Clark as their only shot at making the sport more mainstream, and when she was knocked out, so were their hopes. Meanwhile, the WNBA found itself in a delicate position. It had to figure out how to keep the momentum going, even without its shining star. The ratings dip that followed Clark's elimination wasn't unexpected, but it was still disappointing for a league that has worked tirelessly to build its fan base. The tantrums from the critics, however dramatic, held a grain of truth. Women's basketball needs more than just one or two stars to thrive. It needs a broader base of talents, stories, and compelling narratives that keep people engaged, even when a marquee player is no longer in the mix. Caitlin Clark's elimination and the ensuing drama around it exposed a lot about where women's basketball stands today. It's still a growing sport, one that has yet to fully break into the mainstream, but it's also a sport with immense potential. Clark's rise and fall in this particular tournament became a microcosm of the larger struggles facing the WNBA, struggles that are compounded by the high expectations placed on a few players to carry the weight of an entire league. The tantrums from fans and critics, though noisy, were in some ways justified. People care about the sport, they just want to see it reach its potential. The challenge moving forward for the WNBA is clear. It needs to ensure that its success isn't tied to the presence of just one player, no matter how talented. The league needs to foster a culture where every team, every player has a story worth following, where people tune in not just for one superstar, but for the sport as a whole. Clark's elimination was a blow, but it doesn't have to be a fatal one. The WNBA has a chance to turn this moment into an opportunity, to show that it can thrive, even without its brightest star at the center. In the end, the tantrums and fits, the ratings crash, and the public outcry all reflect a deeper truth about sports fandom. People want to feel connected. They want a hero to root for. And when that hero is taken out, it's hard not to feel a little lost. But for the WNBA, this is also a reminder that it needs to keep building, to keep pushing, and to keep giving fans reasons to stay invested, even when their favorite player isn't in the game. Caitlin Clark's elimination may have caused a crash, but it also set the stage for what could be a new chapter for the league, a chapter where the sport, and not just one player, takes center stage. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.